Scouts with us this morning that are with the Venture Crew 1872 who do reenactments of the 1870s era. Not loud enough? That better? Okay. Don't want to be too loud. At any rate, so we've got Ben and Hunter with us here this morning. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance and then get on with the program. So,
color guard, advance. Color guard, halt. About face. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard, return to post.
thank you, gentlemen. I'm Jim Hodson. I'm the Executive Director of the Fort Worth Aviation Museum. I'd like to thank you for being here today. I know we're a little weather challenged, but we wanted to be as historically accurate as we could make it today. So this is the same weather that they had in 1911. We've got some posters up here we hope you'll take some time to take a look at of different aspects of aviation history here in Fort Worth that began here, actually just across the street from here 105 years ago. We've got some depictions of what the park will look like in a couple of months, actually. We're being told that the park, other than the replica, the Blériot itself, will be done in a couple of months. We also have a depiction of our expansion plans for the museum. This afternoon we will be doing a Wings Award presentation to a group of people who have done significant contributions to aviation preservation here, and we'll have a reception at the museum at 3 o'clock. You're all welcome to attend that. We're going to be presenting awards to Dr. Dawn Youngblood. She's in the back with us here this morning. And Philip Poole. Philip Poole's not sitting. And then Andrew Ord and Laird Sparks, I'm sorry, with Gray Star, who are doing the construction here in the park itself. So aviation history is significant here, and it all started right here in this location. And we've got a couple of speakers here this morning. First one is Councilwoman Ann Zeta, who's going to talk about the park and the neighborhood here. And then we've got Quentin McGowan, a local historian and author, who's going to talk about the First Flight Day in itself. So we'll start out right away and introduce Ann.
Good morning. I'm really pleased to be here. This is another one of the things that was well in the works before I became the representative for District 9. But I am honored to be here today to talk a little bit about the importance of parks in our neighborhoods. When we have development occurring, it's so important that we maintain open spaces where people can come together and we can continue to build community. And this community is very diverse in nature and has all kinds of people living here, all kinds of people visiting here, and all kinds of ways to live here. And the close proximity to downtown makes it a very desirable place to be. So I don't want to make people stand for a long time. All I wanted to do is say thank you to the people who have worked really hard to maintain this kind of an opportunity and to continue to have these type of jewels in our neighborhoods that help build strong neighborhoods in the city of Fort Worth and bring the community members of those neighborhoods together going forward. So thank you very much for being here this morning. I guess Quentin is next.
I have another couple of
Okay.
Quentin's presentation, we will do a small groundbreaking ceremony outside, and then we will launch balloons. That's what the balloons are for. If you've been with us before, we like to launch balloons and see where we get them to come back from. Also, I wanted to thank Councilman Jungus Jordan for being here with us today, and Eva Bonilla, and Sandra with the Parks Department. So I think we're good with that right now. So next, I'd like to introduce Quentin McGowan. Quentin is an associate judge with the probate court #1. But he's also maybe better known to a lot of us for being a local historian and author. And we're very glad to have him here with us today. So Quentin.
This thought about putting the heater over here, but I really appreciate it. I'm too much of a Texan. If it's 110, I'm fine. If it's 50, I'm dying. You know, this is, as Jim pointed out, this is such a historically accurate day. As the day approached for January 12th, 1911, and the first flight in Fort Worth, the weather up until that point had been in the 70s. Those beautiful, spectacular weeks. All the planning was going on. This was going to be the easiest thing in the world. The front moved in Wednesday night and started dropping the temperatures. The weather forecasters were saying it was going to be 10 degrees with 25 to 30 knot breeze. So we're at least a little bit warmer, but we get the sense of the breeze, the overcast. And I think as we go through this, the almost impossible conditions under which the flyers who came to Fort Worth were expected to put on a show for several thousand people who showed up. But before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about what this area looked like in 1911. If the tent weren't behind us, we look out onto what was basically a broad open field and the old driving park. Now, the driving park is just a giant, as the name implies, original racetrack that was tucked on this side of the railroad tracks that cut across. So I drove across and came down 7th Street this morning. It occurred to me, with all the construction that's going on the opposite side of the tracks, that's pretty much what this looked like. It was just bare, open land. Most of this was still being cultivated as farmland because it flooded. Just a couple of years before, in 1908, the city's colossal flood that still ranks as the worst flood in Dallas's history inundated almost all of this, so that we would have been well underwater back and standing on this spot in 1908. But the driving park had gotten its first start in 1905 and was used for a variety of things. It was a polo course, it was a horse racetrack. As automobiles came into use, it then became an automobile racetrack. I think the most interesting thing I found that happened on the site prior to the first flight was that in September of 1907, a Des Moines promoter came to Fort Worth and advertised a colossal collision between two steam engines. And what he ended up doing in the middle of the fairgrounds of the racetrack was colliding two 200,000-pound steam engines. Of course, debris flying everywhere else. But the guy's nickname was the Wrecker. And he apparently went around the country doing these, as they were, I think, taking offline so many of the earlier steam engines. Here was a great opportunity to sell tickets, raise a lot of money, and have what, in essence, was an early demolition derby with steam locomotives. But it was also used for baseball fields, but it was kind of the big grounds. But by 1910 and 11, it was being called the old racetrack, the old park, because our attentions had been taken to other activities that were coming along in the city. The primary way to get out here was the old Arlington Heights Road, that's now 7th Street. You left town on a little iron bridge that had been built back in the 1890s so that you could take a streetcar all the way out to the Arlington Heights development with its terminus out at Lake Como. Single track, pretty small at that point. What was happening in Fort Worth also at the time, we were not quite 10 years after the development of the stockyards. And what we had seen happen in Fort Worth between 1900 and the next census in 1910 was an almost tripling of the city's population, from about 25,000 to nearly 75,000 by the time we get to the first flight day. Our telegram ran a couple of days before the group actually arrived here that shows a cowboy riding across on the open plain with one of these newfangled airplanes, a biplane flying high above it, and he's just sitting there kind of scratching the back of his head. But a major transition point for Fort Worth. We would, of course, a couple of years later go on in 1917 to open Camp Bowie here and train several hundred flyers, first from Great Britain and then the United States at the 3 flying fields here that made up Camp Tolliver. Of course, coming back with the bomber plant and the thousands of airplanes that have been constructed out on the shores of Lake Worth since 1942. Bell helicopter coming here in 1950. So this day in January of 1911 marked a major turning point. And it's impossible to, I think, as impossible to imagine Fort Worth without aviation as it is to try to imagine it without cattle and livestock. So I think having this park dedicated to that memory, and eventually a full-scale model of the Blériot that made that flight with Roland Garros at the helm, is a great tribute to, I think, the perseverance, but the fact that this was all done in 3 days. We see it, we like it, we're going to do it. And I think that still remains a hallmark of Fort Worth, and the one that I hope we continue. So thank you all for being here as a part of the day. Glad it turned out as nice as it did, and thank you for the heat inside the tent.
Okay, so if we can, we're going to move outside and do a little bit of groundbreaking. And they've already done a lot of groundbreaking, so this is the ceremonial part. We've been waiting for this for a long time, though. And then after that's over, grab a balloon, and we're going to do a balloon launch like we've done in the past. So thank you.
I guess he started early. Okay, very good. Okay, is everybody ready?
Oh, whoops, I forgot to let mine go.
Don't get it. Don't get it.
Oh, whoops, I forgot to let mine go.
What's with this one? Don't get it. Don't get it. It's called I don't know what that green is.